It's like we're in a time loop. The Mavs and Wolves have an incredibly competitive game. At times, it looks like Minnesota might actually have the edge as we approach crunch time, only for the offensive dominance of Kyrie and Luka to reign supreme. I'm not sure how many people expected this to be a 3-0 series, but Dallas has just come in and handled business like a true championship level team does. Instead of drop coverage, Gobert opened game 3 blitzing Luka in the high pick and roll. That way they can force Gafford to be a decision maker, and he turns it over. Well, it's actually not that simple. While yes, many of these possessions will result in Gafford catching the ball early, because the doubles are so far out, he has a ton of room to play 4-on-3. This time hitting PJ in the corner for a triple, and next time down they run it again. Edwards rotates early to pick up Gafford, so instead of hitting the roll, Luka kicks it to the wing, where one more pass finds Jones in the corner for another open 3. Then a play later, he's got Conley switched onto him, meaning that the pick and roll isn't needed and he'll just attack 1-on-1. He goes to his signature step back jumper, and the Mavs are looking good early. Whenever Luka did come off a screen in the first, Gobert continued to jump out to the ball, and now Edwards is forced into a 2-on-1. Luka stares down the corner while dropping it into Lively for some easy points. Speaking of Lively, he made a huge contribution off the bench, primarily just hanging around the dunker spot to finish plays at the rim. And in these situations, the Wolves were playing some truly porous defense. When Luka posts up Conley, Gobert comes over to help, but nobody from the weak side slides down to tag Lively, and it's a free lob. As for Minnesota's offense, they started a little slow. There was still an emphasis on packing the paint and dropping against Ant's ball screens, which he couldn't take advantage of with the pull-up 3. So instead of putting him in pick and roll, they started to run more clear-out isolations, where he can rely on his athleticism to put pressure on the rim. And that's exactly what he did, here using his burst to beat PJ off the dribble, then when help comes countering with a floater. Their offense is at its best when he's getting downhill. Multiple defenders are forced to help down low, he'll find the open man with a kickout pass, then they can attack a rotating defense as McDaniels hits a 3. Speaking of Jaden, he was Ant's biggest help offensively, and it primarily came from his use of the mid-range. When he finds himself in those off-the-catch situations, it's important that he can put the ball down, not only for layups and dunks, but also these short jumpers. So they were getting some points on the board. Unfortunately, it was no match for the Mavs' barrage. On this one, Luka gets McDaniels on his hip, and from there the defense is at his mercy. And here, Jaden does a good job of staying in front, only for Luka to initiate contact before pulling back into a 3. There's no guarding that. When it's not Luka, it's Kyrie getting into the defense on a drive and kicking it out. Focus on Edwards though. He thinks the play is over, while Kyrie relocates to a wide open corner as he steps into a triple. Off-ball movement is one of the best ways to pressure a defense, and Kyrie's got it down to a science. This time they're setting up a handoff, and he jukes his defender to reject it, which leaves him with a lane to slither his way to the rim. The Wolves found themselves down 8 in the closing seconds, but Ant just continues to apply constant pressure with those drives, and he finds Alexander Walker in the corner for a 3 to cut that deficit to 5. To start the second, Luka was on the bench, which means it's Kyrie time. A drive-in kick of his own puts the defense in rotation, as Jaden Hardy does a great job of playing off the advantage. Just like Luka, when Kyrie runs high pick and roll, he's going to draw that blitz, and this is where Lively is so valuable, because he's more than comfortable connecting the offense as Josh Green gets an open 3. Here's another example. He comes off a screen, and Towns is right with him every step of the way, but Reed rotates early to take away Lively. It's almost like we're repeating history as it gets moved to the wing. One more pass finds Jones in the corner, and they've got yet another triple. Of course, Kyrie can also use his handle to beat the coverage himself, losing Cat, then beating Conley, finding some space for that signature pull-up jumper. Then Luka checked back in, and that Wolves defense was as compromised as you'll ever see it. He easily beats Jaden off the dribble, draws in the help, and kicks it out to Jones, who apparently has turned into Klay Thompson. And in transition, as they scramble to get set, Luka sees an opportunity to skip it cross court, starting that rotation, which leaves Washington with a closeout to attack as he gets to a floater. Luka was just having a field day. Jaden can't stay in front of him, he navigates the paint to find some space for a midi, and he ends up drawing a frustration foul on the swipe down. It really felt like he and Kyrie were taking turns abusing the defense. Kyrie isolates from an open corner, fakes a baseline drive before attacking the middle, and goes up with the offhand to give Dallas a 12-point lead. On the other side of things, the Wolves started to struggle, and some of that was Ant going cold. The Mavs had to find a way to take away those driving lanes. On this one, all it takes is a stunt from Luka to make him pick up his dribble and turn, and that's a really tough shot. Then when he tries to use pace as a way to attack an unset defense, he runs right into a stationary Luka for an offensive foul. With that said, the bigger problem is how his team struggled to play off of the advantages that he's able to create, and that comes down to the play of Karl Anthony Towns. This series has been a complete disaster for Cat. He's hit 3 of his 22 threes, or 13.6%, some of which are just awful misses, and he hasn't had much success out of the post or slashing to the rim either. The first half of this game was no different, shooting 2 of 10 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, and during this stretch he also inadvertently injured Lively with a knee to the back of the neck, which is something to keep in mind going forward. However, for all of his struggles, he ironically enough was the one who produced offense for them down the stretch of the half. It started with a pick and roll between him and Gobert, taking advantage of a switch with a pinpoint pass to the big man. Then it was one of those closeout situations where he drives, getting all the way to the rim for a really tough finish. His drives were actually really sharp. They're about to set up another pick and roll with Gobert when he rejects it and fights through contact for another layup. His passing was just as, if not even more sharp, here hitting Jaden on a cut for some easy points at the rim. When he tried his hand at a 3 though, he's still ice cold, but Gobert is able to put this one back, so they're still scoring. The reality of the situation though is that no matter what they do, the other team has 2 guys who always have an answer. They decide to try dropping against Kyrie's pick and roll, to which he of course steps into a pull-up 3. When Luka gets the smaller Alexander Walker on him, he turns his back to the basket and isolates from the middle for some automatic offense. Then when Kyrie sets a pick and roll and Jaden loads up early to protect the nail, he moves it over to Luka for the rare spot up 3 that gets drilled. And finally, that takes us to the end of the half. Luka tries another 3 off the catch, but this one doesn't drop. Then off the rebound, Gafford commits a dumb foul, so we've got an 8-point game at the break. The Wolves opened quarter number 3 with a Conley pick and roll, and the Mavs made it clear that they'd switch these actions. Gobert's gonna post up Luka, but he's not exactly the best at punishing switches. So next time down they set it up again, and instead of going to Rudy, Conley's gonna attack the switch himself, stepping back for a much needed 3. He wasn't done just yet though. Here they run some action for him to find space off the ball, and there's a miscommunication, so he frees up for another 3. With that said, besides those couple buckets, this quarter was all about Anthony Edwards. As soon as he finds just a touch of space, he's exploding into a drive-in finish. Again, the key was running more isolations. That way he's got room to take that explosive first step. Then if the defense collapses, he'll find the open shooter for a quality look from 3. Another key was giving the offense a more spaced out look. Reed and Cat instead of Gobert, which really frees up the lane for attacks like this. When Gobert checks in, you can see how much easier it is for Gafford to pre-rotate and pick up the ball early, only Ant is having none of that. This is the version of him that we've been waiting to see all series. Constant pressure, when he can't get to the rim falling back on the mid-range, and the guy just stopped missing. This step back jumper off the glass tied the game up at 77. As for the Mavs offense, same old same old. If Kyrie draws extra help in the pick and roll, he's kicking it to Luka, who's just decided he's a catch and shoot guy now. When Kyrie gets the matchup with Conley, they clear out for him to attack one-on-one as he beats him off the dribble for 2+ a foul. When Luka runs pick and roll and Cat decides to try his hand at a drop, they might as well just be giving up the lob intentionally. But with Gobert in the game and up in that blitz, that's where the difference of not having Lively becomes apparent, as Gafford doesn't thrive in those situations. So what the Mavs made an effort to do was attack Gobert in that coverage and force him to play the ball in space. Here the big man does a great job of sliding his feet to protect the paint before getting a hand up on Kyrie's jumper. Then about a minute later, he finds himself switched onto Kyrie in isolation, again does a good job of taking away the paint, but sometimes better offense just wins the battle. It wasn't just Kyrie though. This time it's Jaden Hardy who takes the big man one-on-one, and he hits him with an up fake to get him off the floor, which actually results in his 4th foul of the game. With him on the bench though, that allows the Wolves to get back to that 5-out look for Ant, and it's Naz Reid who frees up for a top of the key triple. Then on their final possession of the half, he's gonna draw 2, which forces Luka to pick up Cat 1 pass away, and that's an advantage to attack. So he puts his head down on a drive and gets to a floater to give them the lead. Hardy comes back with a drive of his own and puts in a remarkable finish through contact, meaning that with 12 minutes to go, it's a tie game. But it's also the 4th quarter, and the Mavs have Kyrie Irving, so that isn't exactly the ideal situation. The Wolves looked really good to start though. They ran some more action for Conley as an off-ball shooter as he continues to torch from 3. Then on defense, they send bodies at Kyrie, forcing Gafford to make a play out of the middle, once again where that loss of Lively is really felt. Then they come down with a pick and roll between Conley and Kyle Anderson, where Slow-Mo frees up for one of his patented push shots, and to make matters even worse, Kyrie had the very rare fumble, losing his handle out of bounds, and all that's to say it looked like Minnesota had a big shot to take control. Only that's not quite what happened. A play later, Kyrie comes down the floor and stops on a dime for a pull-up 3 in transition. Then on the next possession, he isolates Alexander Walker from up top and steps back for a tough mid-range jumper while making it look so easy. He was starting to catch fire, and that's not what the Wolves want, so they send an early double, to which he makes the pass that puts the defense in rotation. The ball eventually finds Luka in the corner, who after all that scrambling finds Towns on him, so he'll isolate and get to a step back jumper of his own to recapture that lead. It was right around this time that the Mavs decided to try out a smaller lineup of PJ at the 5, and needless to say that left the paint a lot more vulnerable. As Kyle Anderson sets up some action and it doesn't really lead to much, he decides to attack Luka one-on-one, where there isn't a big man on the floor who can rotate down. But this was a move for their offense. They wanted to create more space to attack, and Kyrie was the one who took advantage. Even when doubled, he makes the basketball court look like his personal sandbox to sneak his way into the paint, and you'd think that against a small unit, the Wolves would be able to control the glass. When Gafford checked back in, his impact was felt right away. As a trailer, Cat thinks he has space to get to the rim, only for the big man to pick up a ridiculous block. The thing is, Minnesota hasn't been able to create any separation on the scoreboard, so even though Kyle Anderson hits this stupid one-legged shot, they're starting to enter crunch time against Kyrie and Luka, not exactly the best spot to be. Speaking of which, next time down, Kyrie gets the ball at the end of the clock and quickly attacks off the catch for another one of those left-handed runners. And the Wolves go to exactly what's been working, a drive and kick from Ant, except they shot just 1 of 8 from 3 in the 4th, so that support was no longer there. Compare that to the Mavs, who take advantage of Ant's lapse in awareness by quickly swinging the ball to the corner, where PJ hits a huge 3 to give them the lead. That's when Gobert checked back in, and he made a big defensive play, executing high drop coverage and baiting Luka into a tough situation as he gets called for a travel. So next time down, instead of a pick and roll, they clear out for that Luka isolation, and McDaniels does everything right, from moving his feet to absorbing contact to contesting him so well that it's probably an uncalled foul, and it just doesn't matter. On the next play, it's more of the same, a one-on-one from the middle that Jaden plays incredibly well, and this time he's actually able to force a turnover. So down 4, they've got a chance to cut it to 1, which Cat tries to do himself, but he still can't find the bottom of the net. Then on the other end, they're going to put him in action, a Kyrie pick and roll that draws the hedge, and he attacks the big man in space on a drive before stepping back for a jumper to put them up 6. At this point, the Wolves have to score. Conley too draws a hedge, and he beats it on a drive, only for Gafford to recover with a huge rejection, and now it's only a matter of time before the inevitable. For a little cherry on top, they're going to run pick and roll, and Luka's going to stumble into a pinpoint lob with the offhand, one last show of his offensive mastery, which takes us to the end of the game. and if it weren't for this garbage time layup from Edwards, their last bucket would have been that wild Kyle Anderson shot with more than 5 minutes to go. Just to add some perspective on how dominant of a clutch performance this was. Kyrie and Luka combined for 21 fourth quarter points, and each had 33 in the game overall, yet another display of how amazing of a duo they truly are. Cat shot 5 of 18, 3 different Wolves had 5 fouls, and most importantly, they are now down 3-0, with history not on their side. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this game. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.